Hello, welcome. Today we will be exploring and talking about a criminal case. This criminal case dates back to the 1970s and is a very interesting case. This case went to federal court and it involved the United States versus Friedland. The few reasons why this case went to federal court was due to corruption, bribery, tax violations, including fraudulent investments. So like I said before, this case dates back to the 1970s, but it includes two individuals, who are David and Jacob Friedland. David and Jacob were father and son. David was the father, Jacob was the son. David was a lawyer as well as a general counsel to a pension fund and a publicly known figure due to political ties. So as David was basically in charge of the funds for the investments accounts, he began lending loans against those funds as well as investments. In exchange for these loans and investments, David, along with Jacob, demanded bribes in a form of payment. After receiving these bribes as forms of payment, they were not reported and were kept secret. They kept this scheme up for a few years until they were caught. Well, the issue was that the bribes they were receiving were considered an income, but they were not reporting it as an income. They were trying to avoid tax and failed to report it to the IRS, including even taking further steps to hide that income that they were receiving. David and Jacob were both accused of committing fraud and conspiracy. Both worked together to deceive the pension fund and take bribes. Since David was a lawyer, he was bound by strict ethical rules. That includes being honest, avoiding fraud, and fiduciary duty. When any of these ethic rules are misused, it is considered a major ethical breach in law. The court found that David was guilty as he owed loyalty and honesty, took hidden and unlawful payments, and used his position for personal interest and gain. Focus was also that it was intent and concealment, as David and Jacob both knew the payments were considered kickbacks. Both also knew that the money they had received should have been reported, and they willfully hid the money, not by mistake. They were both found guilty of committing tax-related offenses and fraud and conspiracy charges. David was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. And what this case goes to show is that someone who is in a trusted legal position can turn their power into a scheme that profits him or their family, all while hiding it and turning it into a federal crime. He had an ethical duty as a lawyer and misused it. I hope you enjoyed listening about this case that was from the United States versus Friedland about tax corruption, violation, and fraudulent investments. Thank you for listening.